The mystery of pDAI continues, friends. I spent a long time diving into this. I've just got to firstly tell you, friends, I'm real bullish on pDAI. Okay, so pDAI is forked DAI on PulseChain. We know what it is. Remember, the ticker is DAI. I got to remind you again. The ticker is DAI, DAI. The ticker is not pDAI. We say the P is like a little passport. Okay. But the ticker is DAI, okay? Do not buy pDAI. If you buy pDAI, the ticker, you will be buying into a scam thing that's just meant to exploit people who don't know what they're doing, okay? So as the rest of the world waits for this US election, friends, I think I've figured out speculation how PulseChain does a big pump. And that's why, like, the title of this video is Richard Hart's Grand Plan. Now, it's just full-on speculation, okay? But look, man, this is me, friends. You know, I'm here. I did all the work, okay? I did all the work up until the point where there's information missing for a reason, okay? Which we're going to go through. We'll play some pump music. Richard Hart's Grand Plan, okay? So, if you're looking at it, how do we get PulseChain to rise 100x, Ink to $300, HEX to $1, and other big numbers? How do we do that? Okay, there is magic trick. Okay, so the magic trick, it does involve, in a nutshell, it's leverage and it's incentives. Okay, so look, remember these two words. There's leverage in it and there are incentives. And yes, actually Ink, incentive token. So this plan involves pDAI. A lot of people, there's no bridge yet in their mind, and we'll see it why, because it's not up yet. So the plan, it does involve pDAI, okay? Now, pDAI, in a nutshell, I'll explain to you, if pDAI is $1, yeah, then the origin address, Richard's, whoever controls it, they can mint money, pDAI, and it can route through the pools and it can smash the prices up over and in a loop. Okay? Now, when you first see this, because I want to explain, people are like, that doesn't make sense. And you're right, it doesn't make sense at the start, because that's the first thing we were hearing. We're like, okay, whether I'm long pDAI for a long time, friends. Okay, but if you're buying up coins with your minted currency, even though an oracle says it's $1, you still need somebody to provide liquidity. Okay, this is where the magic comes in. And remember I said the word leverage? Well, you know the SAC funds, I did some thought experiments in my head, and I thought, remember how we all on the assumption that, okay, PulseChain, PLS, and HEX, and the core coins and stuff, we were on the assumption, okay, maybe it is just Ethereum rises up, and they just, the SAC funds just rotate in, okay? Actually, though, there is more pumps coming. What I found out, okay, I could be wrong, friends, I could be wrong, just speculating, just a peanut brain retard, but if pDAI is $1 and we get the bridging done, Richard Hart, genius game mechanic stuff, you can get turbo leverage on that Ethereum, okay? So you can actually do more pumps than anybody expects. It's almost like a market cap cheat. Almost. It's kind of like a market cap cheat where you end up pumping the price in some loop. And then, but yeah, you know how these end. You know how these end. But don't worry about that part. We'll get to the next one. So what you got to assume is, let's fast forward to the future. Okay, so here's the thing. This next part, I'm going to have to assume, guys, the conspiracy is real. Yeah, so Richard Hart, he has the coins. And he does have control of that PMaker vault thing. So what I'm going to do now is just throw Ethereum at $10,000. Okay, so Ethereum is now 10K, which is the fund 1.7 billion. So this is the Ethereum price, right? So just assume Ethereum goes to 10K. There you go. So Ethereum is now $10,000. What happens? All right, okay. I've also, along this path, you have to assume that the PMaker vaults, they are collateralized with the tokens already. Okay, so a lot of people get confused. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, there are these vaults, yeah, on Maker, and there's no proposal yet. But it's kind of funny, the pDAI community, I mean, like, you guys are hilarious. They call it making contact. So it's like, I'm not joking. I almost fell off my chair laughing. Making contact. Because I'm a UFO guy. Like, they're talking about... it's like some secret entity. Making contact. Like, it reminds me of the Pikachu and that Michelangelo thing. Just making contact. The Pikachu, the Pokemon and the human first contact. Aliens, E.T. That just reminds me of that. Okay, so the proposal is they're going to propose on chain. It's typing in some code stuff. I don't know how it's done. They're going to propose that the Maker Vault for it to allow Pulse, PulseX, and HEX tokens to be accepted. And luckily for you, I have all the cute logos here. So right now, if we just I draw this box here. Okay, there's the vault. The vault in here, friends, I don't know if it accepts anything. But if they accept it, they're like, oh, now you have these tokens are allowed in. Now, here's the thing, right? This vault, it's got some code in the Oracle thing. Okay, so just don't worry about the quirks and stuff. I'll keep forgetting it. If you're over collateralized, the Oracle just says that the value of your token's $1. That's it. Okay, that's it. That's the Oracle. It just says, hey, you're actually $1 now. Okay, because you're over collateralized. Okay, so that is basically, now here's the thing. It says, hey, pDAI, you're now $1. So what conspirator people will then say is they'll say, well, okay, the next step is Richard will pump the bags. And they'll go, he will pump these bags. So what he'll do is he keeps minting pDAI. So in this vault, he will have, they do the real numbers, yeah? He'll put in like a 30 billion. So it needs another 2x to go. He puts the origin address coins into there. He's got 30 billion. He can mint $12 billion. And they think, oh, let's just say 5 billion, round number. Okay, 5 billion. And then he can go and just start pumping up the bags. Boop, 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 boop. But no. What happens is, okay, he pumps up the pDAI ratio bags. There is nothing to connect to the eDAI platform. So it's like testnet prices. You see? So the testnet prices go up, you can't bridge out. Someone has to honor the other side of the deal. So that's why I talk about people, and a lot of people, some of them, I know, man, there's a lot of things to go through, but some people say exchanges will honor it. That's why some people believe, no, bro, newsflash, no exchange is going to mix 100 million USDC and 100 million USDT with Richard Heart stablecoin. No way in hell. Because the Tether and the Circle USDC can be redeemed at a bank. This thing came from PulseChain. No way an exchange is going to do it. Now, here's the thing. I hope they do, but they're not. You know why? Because 2022 happened. Luna happened, okay? We already mixed all the pools with Luna UST. They tried to do a lot of them, but the problem is they were unbacked. Okay, that's how Luna UST collapsed. And this is how you got that famous chart of Luna UST. Pretty much it. Bang. Okay, so that is, see, it was $1. This is the Luna UST. It was $1. It kept moving around the peg, volatility at the end, and then bang, had to come all the way back down. You can actually see here, friends, you put on a daily chart, okay, there was a time here. I think you can actually see, you can see here, do Quan. So we come back down. Remember, just to let you know, Luna UST had 16 billion market cap, 1.6. Okay, so it was worth 16 billion. But Do Kwon had 40,000 Bitcoin, which is 1.6 billion. It was only backed by 10%. So when it went down, see this big fat green candle? He basically spent all of it. He's like, oh, okay, we're restoring the peg. Back to 90 cents. He smacked it all up with the market did. See ya. So even though you had a lot of firepower, you can't stop the market. The confidence was broken. But what if there was a way to make it overbacked? That's the Richard Heart genius stuff. That's why, friends, I'm long. Okay, that's why I've been long for a long time. I can't believe it's been a year. And look, all these things, friends, you just don't do this chart accidentally, dude. I'm telling you just don't do this chart. Let me put it onto the pDAI pulse ratio. This is not an accident, Habibi. Do you understand? You can't do this by accident, friends. There is hidden big buys up here. Do you remember? Okay, so why I put this, friends, this was an event here called the Sommi FUD Event. It's actually hilarious. So what happened was, okay, so I get DM'd 4 people. Twitter, Telegram, they're saying, be careful. The pDAI supply is going up. You have to warn everybody. They're getting scammed. It's going to make the chain, someone said to me as well, one person said, it's going to make the chain look really bad against the SEC. Okay, so we can't have all these people losing even more money. So I'm just hearing that. Remember, Richard's silent pretty much. We're still in the midst of the SEC attack. And I'm like, you know what? Well, I don't know any stablecoin that just like gets minted out of nowhere that does this. And then that's pretty much what happened. Bang. Now, here's the thing. This is the pDAI pulse ratio. It actually came back to the price. However, when it came back here, I made videos and posts. No one was interested. I was interested. Okay, so it came back down and came back here. So it actually came back in. And actually, I said, hey, if you want to blame somebody for fudding out, now's your chance to buy back in with 5 times more size. I hope he's dead, by the way. I told you. I hope he's dead. This is your chance to get back in. A lot of people, though, you know, you're just going to have to learn through this time by time. And, okay, what will happen if it was a scam? Okay, then I get blamed for shutting my mouth up. Oh, golly gee, I could have protected everybody from losing all their money, and now, okay, Richard Hart's case got worse because more people got double scammed. You know what I mean? This is the type of uncertainty you're dealing with in crypto lands. So remember this vault, friends. This vault, okay, they got that issue. Like, okay, so the whole conspiracy is just showing that this vault is happening. That's it. Okay, that's where the whole conspiracy is. But the next step is the magic. Okay, because Richard hasn't done the next step yet. And that's why it's speculation. And that's why the price is low. And that's why there's opportunity. And that's why it needs to happen this way. Okay. The next part is, I'm just guessing, there's an eDAI-pDAI farm. Okay. See, one day you wake up and PulseX has an DAI from Ethereum and DAI from PulseChain farm. And it's paying you ink. Okay. There you go. So you just wake up one day and you see that. Okay. So, by the way, so some person asked me, hey, why doesn't he do that right now? Why doesn't he put it right now? Because you get every single weekend right now. You don't want the weekends in now. Because they'll be ruining the party later on. Okay? You need believers in now. You literally just need believers. Now, you see that pDAI eDAI farm, friends? You see how there's a APR here? That's paid incentive tokens. So as you're familiar, when you come back to looking at this, right? So you have an eDAI-pDAI farm here, and it's paying you in ink. Okay, so now you have people bonding liquidity. So, like in a nutshell, what he can do is, because he's like his own central bank here that can borrow against himself. That's DAI. Okay, that's DAI. Because he is in here, he can mint pDAI. Okay, he can mint pDAI, and then the route will go through eDAI, and then it'll go back and pump the tokens. He might even just go pump ink even harder, because ink raises the yield rate. You see? So if he raises the ink price, you know, there's eDAI-pDAI people. Let's say there's $100 million worth. Okay, he raises the yield price. Let's say it's giving 30%. Okay, now he makes it 70%. Now he makes it 400%. Now it's all over the world. Everyone wants to come in because it's 2 stable coins. By the way, you're thinking, no way this will work. Oh, you don't know a crypto bull market. Of course it's going to work. It can work. The problem is the potency. Okay, we're asking, okay, how much does it work? Like, see, so you want to know, okay, friends, there's a plan here. Can it go wrong? Can it go wrong? It's not whether it goes wrong, it's the potency of the strategy. So, like, if pDAI makes its way to $1, okay, and Richard owns, by the way, just let you know, there's a lot of secret wallets that own it. There are some big whales, but, you know, some people have said, including myself, I said, hey, but there's a guy there with 100 million pDAI. There's a couple of these guys with wallets. And I go, yeah, I just realized, oh, you know, there's people with 200 million HEX. They had $100 million at the top of HEX, right? See? So there's some quirks and game mechanics and stuff to say. I don't have all the answers, friends, but I've got to remind you, man, please take yourself back to 2013. You remember the year 2013? You're long Bitcoin here in 2013. And then a guy named Michael Saylor comes out here and he says, Bitcoin is going the way of poker, online poker. He said that. His tweet. You remember his tweet? He said, Bitcoin's going away, online poker. And then he disappeared. Imagine I am standing next to you and you're listening to Michael Chad Saylor, and he's on a chat there. He's Michael Saylor. And I'm telling you, look, man, this guy who just fudded Bitcoin, he's going to buy $10 billion worth on leverage at 100x higher in price. You'd be like, you're smoking crack. Okay, you know what? I smoke a lot of things and may or may not, including crack inside that, okay? May or may not. So when you're looking at it, but that's exactly what happened. Michael Chad Saylor, like, look, friends, it's funny. He puts $250 million at $8,000, 250 million, but then he puts billions of dollars up here. Like his clip size increased, I think, 8x as it went up. 8x. Do you want to know why, by the way? Do you want to know why? Because inherently humans, we love buying the tops. It's because we are in demand. We generate demand for the quantity of the commodity. So as it goes up, you just want to own a whole unit. You want to own a bunch of units. That's why we that's why we have to buy higher. We have to buy more because it costs more. It's like, oh, I've got to buy one whole Bitcoin. Yeah, maybe one whole Bitcoin in like 6 years is like, I don't know, 600K. You see, you might be thinking, wait, you didn't want to buy a Bitcoin when it was 10 grand. Now you want to buy a Bitcoin at 600K, but your clip size went from 10 to 600. You get it? So this loop, friends, is only possible. There has to be a bridge. There has to be a bridge. So people who don't believe, people who think nothing ever is going to happen, I get it. I think something will happen. And shout out to Mr. DecentralizeMe. He has a lot of like clips from Richard from the past. And I'm going to show you here, like, now that you know everything I've just said, I'm like, oh, this all makes sense. Okay, it's going to click. Let's just go through.
So the Luna guy. So basically now what he has, and by the way, the Luna price collapsed like 50% over the last week or more. A centrally managed stablecoin with insufficient reserves where the guy managing it gets wrecked within 1 week or like 3 weeks. It's not a recipe for success. And if you look at a stablecoin backed by crypto, I'm probably going to release a stablecoin at some point, so I don't want to give away all the tricks. But he's doing a lot of things wrong.
I was actually going to ask you. I was going to ask you if HEX or PulseChain is planning on doing a stablecoin.
Well, sure. I mean, I attack things by order.
See, so tricks, tricks. So he could be like looking at what Duke Kwon did. He's like, dude, you have no incentive structures set up. You have too many people who could cash out, who could dump, which is what they did, Luna UST. One of them was actually WinterMute. Yes, WinterPoop. WinterPoop, yes, for real friends. They went to court. It was revealed in court. WinterPoop, one of the dudes behind it, he was the one who broke the peg. Okay, it was actually WinterPoop. And there is probably Richard as well. He did the USDC to eDAI-pDAI peg. So the shout out to Mr. DecentralizeMe again. I'll just get his post here. So Richard Hart showing you how easy it is to create a tight peg when you know what you're doing. It took 2 days for PUSDC to peg with pDAI, but that was through arbitrage. Once Richard collateralizes the vaults and has an Oracle contract pointing to the $1 price feed, pDAI will peg instantly. But like I said, okay, when you're looking at this self-referential system, there has to be a link outside to the one other world. Otherwise, it's like a test net, okay? Otherwise, like a test net, friends. So in my video, in my post here, I showed, well, if eDAI-pDAI, like, is paying 100% yield, and then everyone bridges in, they must bond their eDAI to pDAI. Remember, eDAI is just normal dollars. It comes from anywhere in the world, okay? Or their stable coins from around the world. It's not just necessarily eDAI. People have USDC, USDT, whatever money they have, okay? So they bring in the token, they land on PulseChain. So this is the crazy part, okay? The next part is wacky because it's cute. If incentive token is high enough, okay, people will join in the eDAI-pDAI farm. So what they'll do is, if pDAI is high, what they'll actually do is they'll move the pegging closer. They have to close the gap. They're going to bond them closer because you want to get the yield. So he's paying you to close the gap pretty much if there's an eDAI-pDAI farm. Because if, let's say, somebody has $1 million and they want to farm ink. So they come in, they put $1 million, they move it into PulseX. That $1 million, if you want to farm ink, half of it has to move into pDAI. So that's a $500,000 buy order into pDAI there. You get it? So, and then what about the next guy? $10 million. He puts and then he brings it up. Maybe that's part of his plan. Maybe he can start toggling it. He can actually get people to do that. I'm not sure, right? There's some bells and whistles and twinks and buttons and all these other things going on. But that's why if you get one thing wrong, it starts frying your brain. So you don't have to worry about that. And what I'm going to do is remind you that you're a Habibi Albi, okay? The next question I have is, are you prepared to get mogged? Because this next question was, this is like, if you're in the pDAI community, this is the one question you should be, no one even asked them this. I didn't even ask. I asked myself that, and then I figure out the answer. Okay, so that's why I ask, why even do the whole pDAI thing? Why? Now, some people just say, oh, decentralized stablecoin stuff, but no, but why really? Why not just use the Ethereum to buy the money? Why not use the Ethereum to rotate? It could do that, friends. We could be completely wrong. We don't know. But I'm just telling you I'm wrong. That chart's on an accident. That's it. So why not just use the Ethereum to keep rotating and do the money? Well, another way to look at the Ethereum is that's the carrot on a stick. So he wants people to behave a certain way, so he will incentivize different pools and people to plug the holes with the money. Okay? So that starts to make sense now. Friends, what was our biggest fear? Our biggest fear, I'm just going to go and say it, we all know it. Richard rotates $1.7 billion in. Rectum Rochelle goes, thank you, I've got 1.1 billion, I'm walking out of here. Okay, that was our biggest fear. But now, I don't think it's going to happen like that. Okay, and also, friends, just some, maybe some hints. I don't know if we're right. It just could be we're losing our minds here. But you ever wonder why incentive token, it doesn't have an origin address? Why did we need an origin address for HEX? The answer is because if there was problems with the yield, the origin address could protect everybody from endlessly dumping. It could start to stake and lower the yield for everyone else while it soaks it up. Okay. What about Pulse and PulseX though? They don't have yield handouts. There's no staking. Why do you need the tokens? Why do you need the PulseX? That makes no sense. Now it makes sense though. In the vault, you only have 150% collateralization requirement. So if you have heaps of Pulse, heaps of PulseX, heaps of HEX, you can achieve this and then you can start minting your pDAI. Okay? You don't even need the ink for this. Because ink might just get pumped up itself. So that's why I asked that important question. Why don't we just rotate the ETH in and just pump all the bags up and do that? You know, you never know, friends. You know how Richard was using the funds to buy a bit at the beginning of this year. It could have been a fake out. I'm not joking. It could have just been a fake out. He just buys up a bit just to get people to throw in, just people try to chase and do stuff. Yeah, it could be that. It could have very well been a lure just to get people to think that that's the whole plan. You know, and then leave everybody else to the believers. So what I actually calculated, once again, could be wrong, friends, it's 1,000 things, it's crypto, man. I calculated that if you do this pDAI thing and the Ethereum treasury is used to use incentive tokens and to close the gap with the farms over time, okay, through this natural speculation process. So I'll just show you again. This process, this is PulseX actually. This is pDAI, okay? This natural speculation process is vital. Why? Why is it vital? Because, okay, look. If, let's say Richard actually said right here, hey, I am making a stable coin and I'm gonna incentivize everyone to get pDAI to $1 and I'm letting you know now so you can get in. Imagine he said that. What would happen? What would happen is 10 scum, I got to call them scum because, you know, you got to call them 10 scum would auto buy and they take up the supply for themselves. So now, whenever he did any incentive, eDAI-pDAI linking, let's go to the ratios. Whenever he did any incentive program, okay, every time people come to bond, one of the 10 dudes goes swack. He gets thicker, whack. It just, these guys just like smashing it, and they hold off longer than they should. You see, you got 10 guys who bought 100 million pDAI each under the assumption that they know it's going to $1 and they don't get out along the way. There's been no dispersion. Now, obviously, friends, Richard's smart. He's a genius. I'm sure he's looked at Bitcoin and Ethereum and all their distributions over time, and he can see over time how the big wallets, the whales die and their carcasses spread out. They become like little sharks, mini dolphins, drinking orange juice, of course, doing backflips, and their sizes get smaller. So it basically gets more decentralized like that. It disperses out. So coming into this whole concept, if this happens, okay, and I'm just telling you, friends, there's just too many things saying this, something's going on. That's why you don't really need to know. That's why I said the Michael Saylor example is so perfect. How was I to convince you in 2013, Michael Chad Saylor's, that someone's going to come buy $10 billion of Bitcoin and a country's going to put it on the balance sheet and there's game theory and stuff behind it and Donald Trump's going to need it to win an election, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there is no way. You're going to ask me, explain to me step by step how that happens. No one would believe it, man. No one will believe it because there's a zombie virus thrown in there and all these other things, right? And there's like a revenge story of Donald Trump. You just don't know. That's it, I believe. Okay. I calculated in this, right? Why the whole pDAI thing? Why not just do that rotation? You get more leverage on the pDAI. So let's assume a successful example. If there's eDAI and pDAI and they have $1 billion in it, okay, you're better off just pumping the ink rewards. Okay, so it's leverage. Basically, if Richard Hart uses the SAC funds, which I'll show you right here, if Richard Hart uses the SAC funds and he is buying up ink, okay, he's buying up ink. So ink used to be small, friends. Ink used to be very, very small here. He keeps buying it up and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. When he does this, the yield farm is getting bigger right here. Okay. This yield farm is getting bigger. He's made the carrot on a stick more and more attractive for everyone. So they throw in more and more stable coins. And if you're curious how big they can get, look at Curve. All right. Look at Curve is USD stable coins. Okay. So it's got US dollar stable coins here. Look at their 3 pool. DAI, USDC, USDT. They have $158 million here. So it's annoying to see all these pools, 200 million, 300 million out here. But let's go further. Look at Ethereum's total market cap for stablecoins, 84 billion. See that? 84 billion. So it's quite a genius move if it works. It's genius, friends. Because what it would be doing is, he's going to be dangling the yields. He goes, hey, all you stablecoin boys and girls, do you like yield for your stablecoins? You can come and farm this. Okay, so he gets the eDAI to pDAI stuff. Because when they come in, they bring a stablecoin and then they throw it in, they mix it with the pDAI. Now, here's the thing, friends. I'm sure, look, I can't recite exact examples out there, but I'm sure Richard watches everything, okay? He's got fingers and, he's got fingers in everyone's butthole pretty much, and probably tongues. But he's been around all the DeFi things. So he can probably see, like, low-level implementations of this that got a lot of money. He probably can see it, okay? He probably remembers stuff from 2021. He's like, oh yeah, that silly protocol thing was able to attract like, $600 million and they didn't even have the right things, whatever it is, okay? But $84 billion is sitting on Ethereum, okay? So imagine, now this is the powerful part. That money, imagine he can lure that to come into PulseChain. Not all of it, of course, like a percentage of that. They come in and it starts to close the eDAI-pDAI gap with incentives. Well, maybe it's already pegged by that point. So I'm not exactly sure the exact mechanism. He's got the whole puzzle piece. I don't have it. But the next part is the magic part. Okay, so if he has a farm, like imagine there's an eDAI-pDAI farm and it has $10 billion. Let's say crypto pumps up to 10 trillion because we're much, much bigger than now. So the stable coins on Ethereum, let's say they're higher than that. Let's say they're 1 trillion. They're 1 trillion, and then Richard can get just 10 billion with the B in that eDAI-pDAI farm. So right now, if you look at it, like I just have this theoretical, this has 30 million. Imagine this said like 10 billion, okay? So what he can do is in his vaults, remember the origin address vaults for Maker? Because he's over collateralized, he can mint himself pDAI. That's how pDAI is generated. Okay, just like how eDAI is generated, he can mint himself the pDAI, and then now that there's all these pools here, he swaps pDAI into the eDAI, and then he swaps the eDAI and pumps the shit out of all the bags. And that's why I don't talk like this, but you have like this infinite turbo rocket leveraged loop pump because no one wants to leave the party because the yields are going up. The price is going up, okay? And then what's going to happen is as ink goes up more and more and more, everyone's seeing their yields go 70%, 170, 400%, 600%. They're going to sit more in the farms and they're going to tell all their friends. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm earning 600% yield in this because it's ink. And they tell their friends to come in and they lower the yield down. So he keeps raising the yield up. He attracts like another $100 million out there. Okay, and then they come in and after like a week or month, it drops the yield down. Maybe the yield goes from like 30% down to like 15%. And he goes and he inserts again and he pumps it back up. Now it's back up to 40 or 50%. He tells everybody. Then he grabs another 100 million. Now what he's actually doing is they're all strengthening the bond. Now I'm basically, okay, so this is the thing. So yeah, incentive token is the real, it could be the real king here because it's a lure. It's a lure for everyone to get in. There's some Easter eggs that he can do with this as well. Okay, Easter eggs. But don't come at me if it doesn't happen. I'm just telling you, these are real he can do. One of the things he can do is he can get eHEX and pHEX. They are now parity. They are now parity. He can get that. Yep. That can actually happen. Next thing as well. This turbo leverage loop of ink, it might blow minds. I don't like $1,000 just seems so high to me, but like it's, what is it, $2 now or whatever it is, less. We're humans. Like I'm just like, well, you know, like the numbers get big at like a 20 or 30. You're like, oh, is it even possible? But yeah, so you want to know, hey, how does this thing not work out? Your risk is, so you want to know, the risk is he's advertising high yields, but it's not attracting the capital over there in crypto. That's the risk. So the risk is you pump up the yields, but people just aren't joining. Because maybe, look, I'm just going to be completely honest with this, okay? They might just see this as the perceived risk is too high at some point, so they don't want to move their stablecoins in. They might just do that, okay? So there is a limit to this. It's just you run out of buyers. How many buyers? That's why we don't know. We don't know. Just watch out of your sideline. That's all I'm saying. Like, because if this thing actually does a turbo leverage loop, like, because let me tell you what happens. It mints the pDAI, it hops through the bonding, and then it buys up Pulse, and it drags everything up. And it buys up HEX, and it buys up PulseX, and it buys up Ink, and they all just go up. Then as they go up, what's happened is the origin address, its collateral goes up with it, and then it can borrow more, and it can do it again in a loop, and then in a loop, over and over. But there's like, you can't just say, oh, it sounds like infinite money. No, it's not. You're only limited to how, like, he can't print so much that he destroys the peg on the eDAI-pDAI farm if something like this was to appear, okay? So if he mints too much, the peg gets destroyed, the system implodes, and then you have to go to the eDAI-pDAI mechanism. That's why, friends, a lot of things, this is where people get lost for the community, is if the peg goes down, there's a mechanism to incentivize you to get in. Problem is, they try to like basically offer you high interest rates. I think if you buy it and you can to restore the peg, they give you like a high interest rate. I forgot how it works. But like I always say, okay, if your currency is worthless though, who cares about the interest rate? Like who cares if the Turkish lira, they're offering you literally 20% yield, 20% savings rate on the Turkish lira. You don't care. They're inflating at like 40% per year. So you see what I mean? So these self-defense mechanisms, currency is all backed on faith. That's it. It's all backed on faith. You need a reliable bonding of the bridge. That's it. So once again, the thicker the liquidity provided, the more that central bank can print. Okay. And like I said, these risks, risk. There's always risks. The leverage loop can only be done so much. If people are trapped too much in a bull market, they will then put the pEDAI-PEG system at risk by dumping the core coins below threshold. So you're wondering, like, when this Oracle says these things $1 and these things are trading around the system, if it trades below $1, it does, as long as the prices of the core coins in that vault, as long as they don't drop below the threshold, that's why I meant, like, with this, it's Richard Hartman. Like, I'm sure he's got like this big whiteboard and he's like figured everything out. And remember, see, this is why you got someone, he made HEX go without 10,000x. Okay, so he made HEX go with 10,000x. He understands the distributions of people. He understands like what's possible. He understands what's been enough time. He understands these things. Okay, so you and I, it takes a long time for us to figure it out. That's why he's a genius and why we're not. That's why he's a billionaire and I'm not, and you're not either. Okay. So he's probably worked out a lot of these kinks. Now, yes, there is risk with this. Of course, there's always risk with everything, because what if the hyper turbo pump loop in the bull market is so big that it crumbles the bid of the core coins so much that it's even beyond his calculation? So that's obviously the risk there. And that's why, like, look, maybe the plan is, friends, for him, it seems like it. This is like a completely neutral, independent, libertarian island thing. Okay, where in terms of if you have a stable coin, you hold pDAI because it's a purely decentralized stable coin. That might be his plan. So you never actually bridge out of crypto. That could be his plan. You sell if you want to trade around and play the cycles. You sell into pDAI and then you hold and then you earn yield. That could be his plan. I'm just saying, just be careful about that at the end. That's why we always say, oh, what a great plan. Everyone just sit in stable coins. But look what happened in 2022, man. These things just start blowing up left, right, and center from the bear market. Also, I have a wild card, super speculative as well. That's a whole thing. This whole game speculation. You understand? This is it. But look, Richard or OA, Greg the Dark. So when they mint, do you remember I told you this example, how he pumps the bags? Yeah, he has this pDAI that he mints, from that origin address. But to buy, for example, let's say he wants to buy ink, he has to go to eDAI, and then the eDAI then buys the ink, and the ink goes up, okay? That's pretty much how it goes, okay? However, what if he just mints pDAI and puts eDAI back into his wallet? What if he does that? Now, I haven't worked out the kinks. Will they even need to do that? I just thought about that. Like, what would happen if he did that? But then I thought of I'm being honest, I thought of another example. What if Do Kwon from Terra Luna, okay, actually this did happen. He was selling his UST. He sold like $1 billion worth or something. Or Luna, I forgot what it was. So what would happen there? Remember, it's a decentralized stablecoin though. So it's code. You know what I mean? Everybody made the decision to bond in a thing. And then, like, do you see what I mean? So they're chasing a yield. It could be possible that he inserts pDAI, he gets their Ethereum DAI. Maybe, and that might be bear market ammo. I don't know. Okay. Or that might do something to help a peg later on. Maybe he collects enough to, like, maybe he collects enough eDAI from that process, and that is the bear market floor for PulseChain core coins in the next bear market. So as you can see, friends, there's a lot of moving parts out here. Aren't you glad I told you, I go, dude, you don't need this story. Just look at this chart. Okay, this is the pDAI to Pulse No, this is pDAI USD chart. See these friends, it's not even a cent yet. When I was talking about it here, okay, this is the funniest part. I go, look, bro, you don't even need it to go to $1, friends. From here to $1 was, okay, that is 2,200x. I go, okay, maybe it is, here you go, 1,900x. Okay, sweet, forget $1. Can we just go to 10 cents? Okay, now you're at 196x. Okay, maybe that's too scary for you. Can you go to 5 cents? Can you just flip Luna UST and just go back here? Okay, that's still a 98x on your money. Like, I just kept lowering the bar, and I'm like, dude, the upside's so high. Okay, by this time. So this chart is no accident, pretty much. So if you summarize this whole process, friends, I know there's a lot of things going on, but that chart just says continue to be bullish. That's it. That whole process, it requires some missing links. That's where everyone was like, how do we bridge? How do we bridge? How do we bridge? What? Where's the bridge? Well, that's why it's just guessing. That's what you're totally guessing. You know what I think about it? It's just like HEX. It's just like HEX, friends. So what I mean, it's just like HEX. When HEX, let's actually go to the chart. Remember, HEX, the better Bitcoin. Okay, HEX is the better Bitcoin, friends, officially and confirmed. I'm going to show you the HEX chart. Okay. There were people who bought HEX down here. Okay, they bought HEX down here. I think Mr. Firewhale got in. I just want you to think about it. There are people, they collected like 100 million HEX. 200 million HEX. Because, you know, it was worth nothing. It was only 5 million market cap. Okay. So, if you got in here, imagine I came from the future and I was telling you, hey, you know, somehow this thing is going to get to 50 cents. Somehow. Actually, not even 50 cents. Just like 10 cents. Somehow HEX is going to get to 10 cents. And then you're probably sitting here like, how, man? There's not enough liquidity for me to exit. I can't, like, how can I get there? That's too much money. Okay, but it does. Because people come in, people join the liquidity pool, the network effect gets bigger. There's incentives now because HEX is handing out yield. Interesting. That's another concept. Okay, what about pDAI is handing out yield as well? It's just pDAI, you got to get the pDAI by using your eDAI for other people out there. There's one thing though, friends, that I still can't remember if we've worked it out. So if you want to know the real numbers, there's 22 billion. Richard has 12. Okay, I think Richard's wallets, they have 12 billion of the pDAI. 5 is circulating. So 5 can be bought by the whole community. And I think 5 is the forkers from eDAI. 5 billion is the forkers there. I don't remember the explanation for it. I'll be honest. If someone can chime in, I think I heard it. I wasn't convinced. It was something like they won't sell. People said they won't sell. That was one explanation. I go, dude, then that's not even going to go through. I'm not going to bother addressing that. They don't sell. Okay. The next explanation was when they exit to sell, they have to buy the tokens first. Okay, that's another thing because they have to go through the liquidity pool. But then once again, you're honoring a very higher price of pDAI to allow them to grab. So like if they have $1 million worth of pDAI in the future, that's just 1 million pDAI, which is nothing now. They can grab a lot of tokens for themselves and like exit. But I'm still trying to work out in my mind if that's routing through and buying them first and then they have to exit. So they buy and then they sell. Maybe that's part of it. There could also be some sort of proposal for them, for these addresses, to like blacklist them. I don't know. I don't know. That could be it, friends. If Richard blacklisted those wallets, that would be big. Actually, now I thought about it. I think there's people got to like think more about it. Like if they blacklisted all the existing wallets and then they couldn't dump in the future, like that would be, man, that would be big. That would be big if that happened, because then it's literally just us. You removed the people who had pDAI, who had Ethereum DAI, got the copy, and they had all this time to participate, but they didn't. So that's something. I'm just not sure. I think I read somewhere about a whitelist or a blacklist, if it can be done to mint or do whatever. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But you see, I haven't got it all worked out, friends. That's just part of it. I'm wearing a Donald Trump wig. You know, I'm just telling you, like, you don't need to know all of this. All I'm telling you is this chart. That's all I'm telling you, man. You don't get this. You cannot. You can't replicate this out of just thin air, okay? And the example I'll use, I made a YouTube video on this, a Twitter video, sorry. It's 70 million market cap. It's 10% of Pulse, man. Listen to me, it's 10% of Pulse, friends. You see Pulse here, 700 million. You don't get accidentally 10% of the Spear Layer 1 price. That's no accident. You are something special. Okay? Ethereum is 300 billion. If there was a coin worth 30 billion, would you think it's a useless fart coin? No. Pepe is 3 billion, by the way. Imagine Pepe did another 10x. You're like, whoa, Pepe is 10% of the size of Ethereum. Yeah. You see what I mean? So, pDAI, I'm not saying it's like whether it's cheap or expensive. I'm just telling you it is significant. It is something to pay attention to. It's like the leader of the meme coins in PulseChain. But you can't even call it a meme. It's its own meme. It's its own narrative. It's like the world's first future stablecoin. That's why I'm like, this is firstly, the dollar price is priced in, and secondly, it's got incentives to move along the way. So yeah, this is I just want you to think about what happens if, look, forget the prices and everything. $1 triggers a lot of people because they haven't seen the bridges. I get it. Yeah, there's no bridges out yet. Okay, because you just haven't had Richard Hart trying to actively tweak and put links in. Okay, but what's gonna happen if this is the pDAI USD price? What if it just gets to like 2 cents? What if it gets to 2 cents, friends? That's what it looked like on the chart here, by the way. What if it gets to 2 cents? People are gonna play the 1 or 2 cent range, and then they're gonna think about, oh my gosh, what if we get to 10 cents? Okay. I just want to show you, man, if we get to this 2 cent mark, like from when I made my video, my gosh, dude, it is, man, this is just wild. That would be up 56x already. So from here, just to get to 2 cents, that's another 7 times. If it flips to Luna UST, that's another 20 times. And they call the pegging, which is a 316x. So I'm just like, all I'm just saying is like the targets are so high. We're still early. That's all I'm saying. Okay. It fries your brain. Remember, you don't have all the key missing. You don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. I think it's by design. It's intentional by design. I think it's worth a lottery ticket still. Okay. So I think it's worth participating in this. It's a Richard Hart meme coin, man. Like he doesn't let things go down. He doesn't. Okay, and that's all I'll say. Make sure you like, subscribe, bell button, or catch you next one.